I started doing these stories to help, like, somehow talk about this experience of these three artists together. And I started working with a woman, Nicole Martinez, to write these stories. And then I got to know her better. And eventually, many changes along the way, she's eventually became our associate director. She loves to write. She's phenomenal at doing the grants. And she really loves to write. And it started with the stories, because I was like, at one point, so she's writing the stories, and I was like, could you help with grants? And she was like, I'd love to. I was like, fantastic. Like, this is something I'm really not good at and takes so much of my time. And she would write these things like that. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, why didn't I ask you this earlier? But so she started taking on more and more responsibilities. And I was like, okay, so she joined the team. We had sold a few works of art, and I might be off on the timing, but we'd sold a few works of art. And then eventually she's like, well, maybe we should, I said, do you think we could create it? What do you think if we created a document, like, that would actually tell people we had artworks available, and then people would really know. And she's like, yeah, we can do that. Like, it's like, that was like an epiphany. Like, hey, I should really tell people that we sell these things. And so, we evolved into, actually creating PDFs of available works, but we still don't put them out. And maybe one day we will. Right now, it's a benefit of being a member, because we don't have that many works available, and so it's still a benefit. Yeah, it's a benefit of being a member, but it became a significant revenue stream. I mean, and that, like, in our best year, which was really kind of an anomaly, but in one year we paid artists over $300,000, like, for artwork, which is huge. Like, when that happened, I was like, oh my gosh, like, that's amazing.
So that's the buyer paying Fountainhead, who then passes it along to the artist.
Yeah, so depending on whether they have a gallery or not, if a gallery is not involved, the artist keeps 70%, and Fountainhead takes 30%. In the normal gallery model, it is 50-50.
Is it just me, or does that seem like a lot?
I will say that for the galleries that really invest in their artists and help them build their careers, it's not. Because a good gallery artist partnership grows together. But models are changing, because artists now have more control over their career than they've ever had. Instagram, you can find artists, you can connect with artists. When we started in this world, like, to be realistic, a lot of galleries would keep you as far away as they could from the artist.
Right, they don't want you doing the deal.
They don't want you doing the deal somewhere else. But the truth of the matter is, most people are good, like, and if you have a relationship with that gallery, you're not going to go behind their back. And if you have a relationship, if the artist and the gallery relationship is strong, they're not going to go behind your back, But for a very long time, those worlds were very, very separate.
They were like the gatekeepers.
Right, absolutely.
And it was
things are changing
imbalanced.
now.
So it's changing now. And people are having more reach, more direct communication with their supporters, with their potential collectors.
Right.
And now Fountainhead has this new revenue stream of pieces that are being sold, which, when I heard that, I was like, oh my gosh, this is about to take off. Because I'm like, oh, it's a momentum wheel now.
Yeah.
And it just picks up steam, and you keep doing your thing incredibly well. The rest of those pieces begin to fall into place. Is that what began to happen?
That, and I will say, just yes, but absolutely bringing more people in to the organization is absolutely what the main difference was. Like, just creating a board and having voices outside of mine and Dan's, was a big move, right? Because before it was just Dan and I, and the kids, like, doing everything, making all the decisions. And And then when you bring a board in and they have new ideas and different strengths, then, then more great things start to happen. And then once we had the board, then we started to do the other revenue stream is sponsoring artists. So that was actually before the art sales was sponsoring artists. So you can't pick. Like somebody can't say I will sponsor Matt to be at your residency. It doesn't work that way.
They just have to be really lucky that they get me.
Yeah, exactly. Eventually, but we can do it more. They can either just sponsor an artist because we bring 33 artists here, or we can put certain parameters around it. Like we have a collector that sponsors an artist from Brazil every year, or from Brazil or born in Brazil and living somewhere else. It might be, a painter. And, it may, we have, like now we're working with the Human Rights Foundation that we would bring artists that were originally born in under authoritarian regimes. So we have all different sponsorships, but it's basically individuals or foundations that are sponsoring artists for a specific reason. But the choice of the artist that's being sponsored is independent of the funder.
And that's just in the studio. It says brought to you by or something like that?
On our website and in all of our communications.
Cool.
And it's a way for people to fund the organization, and it's also a way for them to be recognized for their philanthropy.
Can you talk a little bit more about partnerships? Because I know you have these wonderful relationships with groups that do things that you can't, but they're so complementary. Mm-hmm. What's the biggest thing you've learned about the world of partnerships in art?
Again, it comes down to people. Like the more people you bring in where you can create win-win situations, the stronger you all are, And I mean, it's, and I work with organizations that are very similar to mine. Like I really believe, like, I will take, our donors to other organizations that have membership groups and funding, just like mine, because ultimately, we all need support. If you're looking at the world, as what do they say? Like I believe there's enough for everybody, right?
Unlimited.
Yeah, it's unlimited. It's unlimited. There's literally enough for everyone. And if I continue to do my job and the organization continues to support the mission that a donor has invested in, then they're going to continue to donate. I can introduce them to 10 other people and organizations, and if they're all doing something that this donor believes in, maybe they'll donate to everybody. And maybe they'll cycle out after a couple years. Maybe they'll find that they're more interested over here. That's great. It's a natural evolution. But the more we share and the more we partner and the more we introduce our supporters to other things that might light them up in a different way, it's beneficial to everyone. And I think that's really what I realize is like I take pride in like maybe helping somebody else find something like a new point of interest, a new passion, a new place to go, And so I think that's and then the partnerships, also we do partnerships for we do partnerships for a little bit of everything. Like we host events for, like we're hosting an event coming up for the Women's Fund, which is an organization I think is so important to Miami-Dade County, but also they have women's funds, around the world. But we're hosting an event for them. So it's sometimes as simple as just bringing people into our home, into the residency, to something that's a unique environment for most people. And again, it might ignite something different. Hopefully it gets them excited and they, write checks to the Women's Fund.
Right. And it sounds, I'm now thinking back to your comment about how the residency started, which was you were able to pinpoint that you could offer something, a place for these artists to stay.
Yeah.
That was so perfectly compatible with what the museums were trying to achieve, the galleries, but they couldn't, or you were substituting.
Right.
And if you know clearly what you can bring, the clearer you can be about that, and you sit down and have that lovely conversation with whoever it is, suddenly the connecting the dots becomes much more intuitive.
Absolutely. Well, and I've also learned that when you're partnering, because we were just having this conversation about, a meeting that I'm going to have next. You have to stay, but stay true to what you do well. It's great to grow and evolve with other people's influences, but a good partnership is when you work together to create something that plays on both organizations' strengths or both individual strengths, right? Don't do things that really don't make sense for you.
Yeah, like you could be approached by some group that is asking you to do something that is not part of your wheelhouse, or it's not of interest to you.
Yeah.
And it's very tempting sometimes because maybe there's some monetary incentive
Exactly.
to say, yeah, I'll do that. But you don't realize you're getting spread thin.
Right. And also, it generally, even if you think there's money on the other side, it really does. If it's not a win-win situation, it's generally not going to happen. It just isn't.
But it might be entering into entirely new territory that's never been done before. And that can also be a little overwhelming, right?
Yeah, but that part can be good. Like if it's, that part can be good. If you can see a dotted line to get there, then I think it's worth pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. But if it's something just totally different that just doesn't make sense and isn't really mutually beneficial, then it doesn't. And sometimes that's hard to figure out. Like, am I scared, or does this just not make sense?
Right. Am I scared? Is this a good scared?
Right, yeah, exactly.
Or a bad scared?
Right, yeah.
One of my absolute all-time favorite small businesses is a fly fishing shop in Georgia.
Okay.
And they make rods. They hand carve fly fishing rods. Mm-hmm. And it's a very intricate process, takes a long time. And they started becoming quite popular to the point that, U.S. presidents were standing in line for one of their rods. And the rods became quite expensive and out of a lot of fly fishermen's budgets and fly fisher women's budgets. And they started offering rod making workshops.
Okay.
So if you really love fly fishing, you can come for several days, learn how to make a rod, take it home. Mm-hmm. And you're now part of the club. My favorite element of this, and it really comes full circle from a lifestyle perspective, is that if you're part of the club, if you've attended a workshop or if you've purchased a rod, you get invited onto one of their trips.
Okay.
And they go to very special fishing holes around the world, limited in quantity, 5 or 10 or 20 members at a time. And it's just you fish with like fishing nerds.
Right, yeah.
And that's like really what makes Bill, the owner, just so excited.
Right.
Explain the trip element of Fountainhead that has evolved, which I feel like is giving you all the feels as well.
Yes, I love the trips. It was just something we just kind of started. I was like, I don't know. Like, museums do trips. Like, this is nothing new in the arts. Museums have always done trips for their patrons. But in order to go on those trips, the patron level is quite expensive. It was well out of my reach, right? And then the trip itself was very pricey. So it's like it was completely out of my reach in all ways. And so I was like, but people like trips. Like, and listen, the fact is we live in the experience economy, right? And I realized that what I'm doing through the open houses, it is about the experience. It's how you feel. It's what you see. It's the people you're with. And so I was like, maybe I could do these trips, And so what was our first one? I think the first one I actually did it wasn't even a trip. It was like a day in New York City, where we just went to go visit some alumni, and then alumni introduced us to other artists that were, like within walking distance, and we just spent the day visiting artist studios, and people loved it, and they're like, "Can we do more of this?" And then I just realized this is something I can take on the road, and we can go to different cities and immerse ourselves in the arts, and especially now because we have alumni around the world, we can go and reconnect with alumni. We can, meet their galleries or make new friends. We can go to the institutions there. We can eat and drink, and then we can get to know the city a bit more. So yeah, now we're doing these trips, and I'm trying to figure out how to balance everything. I mean, how do I do all these things? But the trips are fantastic. So we're small groups. It's again a benefit of membership. And we're anywhere between 15 and 20 people. Like we went to Little Rock, Arkansas, or Bentonville, Arkansas, and we took like 24 people. That was a great time, and it was a short trip, so we were able to have more people on that one. But generally, I think that the sweet spot is 15, 16, 18 people. Yeah, and we travel the world, and we go inside collectors' homes and visit artist studios, and I always work with. Basically, I try to find a me in the other city, right? It's not everybody says, well, what travel agent do you work with, or what tour group do you work with? And I'm like, we don't work with tour groups. We work with people, and it may be their first time doing it, So you got to kind of like understand that everything might not be perfect, but the people that come on these trips and our members don't expect everything to be perfect.
Right.
That's part of the fun.
The relationship is so much deeper than
that. Exactly. And we go morning till night. We do not sit down. And like I used to build in like a couple hours to do something, then we just all found ourselves at the bar. And I was like, if we're going to be together, we might as well just plan the whole day, like from 9 in the morning till 10 at night, and sometimes even later, depending on where we are. So we just go, and so I'm leaving next week. I'm taking a group to Cape Town, South Africa, and Johannesburg. And then we started a partnership with Zona Mako, which is the leading art fair in Mexico City. And so we're like, well, we kind of have to go there. And Francesca, who's our third member of the team, we started a Young Contemporaries program. And so it's not a young collectors program, which a lot of museums have. It's just a contemporaries program for people that are just starting to like learn about art. They're not collectors. They're just like young people that are interested, right? And they want to hang out with other young people and do different things. So Francesca said, well, what if we do a travel light program for the contemporaries? I said, that sounds like a brilliant idea. Nicole's like, Nicole's like, yeah, I think we can do this. I was like, well, you guys are going to have to do this because I'm going to be in South Africa. And so they're doing the trips a little differently. So they feel that the younger people would like more free time. Like they're happy with like one big event each day, and one thing, like one experience, one meal, and then the rest of the day to do what they want to do. So that's what's going to be happening in Mexico City.
What I love about these trips as this latest iteration is it all really started with attracting those people to your home at the beginning, the right people to your home, who you shared these things in common and you enjoyed their company, and it started unfolding to the point that now a business division, in a way, of Fountainhead there's a transaction there, they're paying, but it's so much more organic and natural. And could you have envisioned doing trips like before you?
No. I couldn't envision half the stuff that we were doing, And I mean, the other thing that we're doing now, thanks to really Nicole, like we have no documentation of the residency because I'm one of those people that I feel like if I'm trying to document, I'm trying to take pictures of everything, I'm living behind the camera. I'm just not I want to get the perfect picture, so I'm not in the activity, right? So there are very few pictures of the first 10 years. And Nicole's like, no, we need to do this because like it's historically like relevant and important, right? And with pictures, you can promote more. We now have Instagram, right? So we started off doing professional photography for the artists. So doing headshots, doing images of their work, images in their studio that they could then use on social media. We can use on social media. They can use it in grant applications, things like that on their website. And then Nicole, being a writer, she was like, I think we should start like she was doing, she continued to do the stories all the way through this, and she was like, I think now we should, she's a critically, recognized artist and continues to write for art publications as well. But she was like, I think let's bring in some more voices, So we started commissioning essays by the artists, and life is about storytelling. So we started to commission local artists to make mini documentaries about each artist. So now we do photographs, we do films, we do critical writing, and then starting last year, we now do a book every year. So these are all things that are like the artists leave kind of with this toolkit that they can use to continue to promote themselves. And then it acts as an archive and a historical archive for Fountainhead. And then it also, now we have a book so that our supporters and those that have donated to us have like this physical representation of what they've invested in. So all of those things are have added to the program. So like I would have never envisioned those things. So all of the evolution of Fountainhead and how it's grown, not only in what we provide the artists, but what we, do for our supporters, which then leads to greater revenues, right? It's all just grown from people's suggestions, trial, error, but mostly people like going, you should do this, or you can do this, or have you thought about this?
And the opposite is like not interacting with any people, keeping your work or your craft to yourself and never having any of that feedback loop.
I can't imagine that.
What have you learned from the residents about creativity?
Oh my gosh. I would have to take days to talk about that. I think I've learned that I think artists are the bravest people in the world because like they put everything of themselves into their work. It doesn't matter if it's a photograph, a painting, a sculpture. It is their life encapsulated into an object, right? Or a film, that then anybody and everybody is allowed to comment on that. They bring themselves, their history, their good day, their bad day, their knowledge, their naivete, and they all have an opinion, and they're going to give their opinion on that work of art. And the artist hears this, they take this in, and I'm like, I'm not that brave. Like I'm not that brave. I can't imagine doing that and then sitting back and being criticized, or even patted on the back. Like it goes both ways. So I think that, they're the bravest people. I just think they're extraordinarily brave. And so they help me to be braver. But what have they taught me about creativity? I don't know. I think that that it's unlimited. And it's also like what you taught me in asking that question. It's truly unlimited. We're only. I had a children's center that our slogan was like that. We're when it comes to teaching children, the children are only limited by what we choose to teach them.
Join our creative business community at HereGoesNothin.com.